Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Wagner. I'm the president of the Armourville Neighborhood Association, and on behalf of our association and our board of directors, along with our partner, the League of Women Voters of the River Towns, who will be conducting tonight's debate, I want to welcome you all here this evening. I also want to welcome our co-sponsoring community associations, which include the Lawrence Park West Association, the Longvale Homeowners Association, Garrett Park Neighborhood Association, Brookside Residents Association, Colonial Heights Association of Taxpayers, and the Mohegan Heights Homeowners Association. In particular, I want to thank the leaders of these organizations who I work with throughout the year to tackle some of our common challenges of safety, security, and quality of life for our respective communities. They are a very talented and dedicated group of volunteers who have stepped up to represent their communities. And I'd like to take a moment to ask them to please stand so we can acknowledge their presence and thank them for what they do. So Terry and company. I also want to express my deep appreciation to our friends here at Sarah Lawrence College, who every year for many years have been making this night available to us so we can conduct these debates. And this year in particularly, we're delighted to be in this phenomenal new space, the Barbara Walters Student Center. I urge all of you to take the tour, walk around. The commissary is open till 1 a.m. if you have that need for late night coffee. And I know, because I was here yesterday for a gathering, we are all welcome as members of the larger Sarah Lawrence community. So again, thanks to them. I also want to acknowledge Debbie Finkelstein, who is the Director of Events here at Sarah Lawrence. She works with us throughout the year to do events like this. And just so you know how it takes to go smoothly, this week alone, she had an event for the whole new class at Sarah Lawrence, hosted a donors gala on Friday, hosted a welcome to the neighbors party here yesterday, and about a half a dozen other events. So the fact that she's still here and still standing is a testament to her talent and perseverance. So thank you, Debbie. I would also be remiss in not acknowledging our own intrepid Sue Weisfeld, who works tirelessly throughout the year to pull this together, coordinating with the candidates and the league. So thank you, Sue. Finally, I want to acknowledge all of our elected officials and candidates who are here this evening. Many of us look to them throughout the year to solve an array of problems that come up. I know yours is not always an easy task, and you deserve our gratitude for being willing to enter public service. So I thank every one of them. Before I introduce the moderator of tonight's debate, I want to ask your indulgence to say just a few words about why I believe events like tonight are so important. We are facing a time of great uncertainty in this country, both politically, economically, and environmentally. Our future, and maybe more importantly, our children's future, hangs in the balance. The issues can often feel too weighty and feel overwhelming for many of us to engage. I know I often feel like I wish I could do more. But then I catch myself and I realize that I can. It starts right here in our own backyard. Local government, including city, county, and state, is the place where we can have a direct impact on our politics, on both our elected officials and those who are running for office. I have been fortunate in my role as a community leader to meet and work with many of them. They are not only our representatives, but they are often our neighbors. They live in communities just like ours, and they encounter the issues firsthand in many cases. And the best way for them to become informed on these issues is to hear from their neighbors and constituents like you. Whether it's an informal meet and greet, a public hearing, town hall, or debate like this evening, it's in events like this where the rubber meets the road and we get the measure of the people who will represent us. Some of you know that residents of Armourville were in this very room just a couple of weeks ago because my community has recently experienced one of those environmental disasters you don't think will ever happen to you. A recent significant oil spill displaced a family from their home and left our neighborhood wondering about the environmental impacts long-term for our neighborhood. Given that thousands of gallons of fuel oil has flowed through our bedrock and more than 4 months after 24/7 recovery efforts, the oil is still flowing with no end in sight. We gathered here in this very room to learn from representatives from the Department of Environmental Conservation for the state of New York about the scope of the disaster and its prognosis. They were constrained by potential litigation issues, and so they were reluctant to conduct the meeting. Nonetheless, due to our perseverance and the influence of our elected officials, especially State Senator Shelley Mayer's office, they were convinced to meet with us. The meeting had the desired effect to help calm people's worst fears and give them vital information to make sound decisions about their property and their family's health. I want to emphasize that when this disaster struck, I was able to immediately reach out to our city, county, and state officials to help us get some important answers to a whole range of questions. We had a timely response from all levels of government, and they engaged on the issue with us in a serious way. Because we are a community, we have worked hard to build communication with our public officials and to let them know we support their efforts on our behalf and want to work with them not to complain, but to address and solve issues both big and small. I know we are all busy and overstretched, but I will also tell you that the time you invest in attending events like tonight's debate will serve all of our communities far more than we realize. And I urge you to encourage your neighbors and friends the next time you come out for an opportunity to meet a candidate to bring them with you. It's how we protect ourselves, it's how we protect our communities. And please remember, knowledge paired with commitment is real power. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce your moderator for this evening on behalf of the League of Women Voters, along with the timekeepers. Paul Schwartz is a retired teacher of English and public speaking. He now devotes his time to a number of not-for-profit organizations, including the Westchester County League of Women Voters. He has been a moderator for a number of years, and for the past 4 years, he's been responsible for orienting and assigning moderators for all of the League events. Also, tonight's League of Women Voters timekeepers are Adelaide DeGiorgi and Mary Lou Green. And collecting your questions, hopefully, was Judy Gorenstein. So all these folks are from outside the district. This is all nonpartisan. So thank you all for coming out, and I'll turn the podium over to the candidates and Paul. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you for that introduction. I'm glad to see some folks standing in the back. I thought I was going to be the only one standing for 2 hours. But it's my pleasure to assist you today. I am merely here to facilitate the process. It's between you, the voters in this district, and the candidates. I live in White Plains, and will be going home to White Plains at the end of the evening. You're the ones that have to make up your mind about this election. It's important to allow the candidates to make the best use of the time, so I would ask you to hold your applause until the end of each. We're doing 2 segments, until the end of the segment, until both closing statements. It's being recorded. I am not sure when and where that might be seen, but that's a reminder that no one in the room should be recording anything. It's so terribly easy today to just hold your phone like this and make a recording. Please don't. It's against the league policy. And while I have it in my hand, mine is on airplane. Yours should be somehow silent, okay? We will be hearing tonight from candidates for Mayor of Yonkers and then Westchester County Legislator, District 15. Ground rules. First, remind you of the policy and purpose, the League of Women Voters, and of these forums. It's to engage the candidates and the public in civilized discussion of relevant issues with the goal of educating voters. Argument, yes. Invective, no. Opinions, yes. Insults, no. And you were asked in writing your questions, please, to make them on the issues. With both of the segments, we will begin with opening statements, a minute and a half. There will then be one question, perhaps more, from the sponsoring organization, which I will pose, followed by questions from the audience. You were asked to write your questions on cards. I don't see any names on these. I thought we said put your name on it, but I'm not going to read names. If you haven't already done that and you would like to, cards are still available. Okay? And I will read the questions that have been submitted and have been checked and vetted by the league. They've chosen questions that are relevant, not redundant, and covering an array of topics. Any question which is a personal attack will not be used. Responses to questions, again, a minute and a half, with an additional 30 seconds if requested for rebuttal, a little back and forth, but that's only if you ask. And the order will rotate. Closing statements following that, 1 minute reverse order of the openings. As moderator, I will reserve the right to allow additional rebuttal at the close if warranted by the content of a closing statement. I'll thank the timekeepers have already been introduced. The signs will indicate 30 seconds and stop. We're ready to begin. We flipped a coin, and by that, Mr. Spano will speak first, and Mr. DeGiorgio will follow. So we're ready to go.
Good. All right, good evening, everyone. And let me start off by saying thank you to Mario DiGiorgio, to the homeowner groups that are here today, especially my own homeowner group of Colonial Heights, to the league, to Sarah Lawrence College here in the Bronxville section of the city of Yonkers. It's great that you're all here, and for the past 2 terms, I've been working on the things that matter most, and I've been working very, very hard on your behalf. And the areas of economic, the areas of education, and the areas of crime. Now, a minute and a half, we won't have a lot and hopefully the debate will pan out and we'll get the details out. But as your mayor, so far we've been seeing a renaissance here in Yonkers. $3.5 billion worth of economic development happening in and about the city, not just on the water's edge, but all across the city of Yonkers. My time as mayor, we've made some significant reforms to the Board of Education, changing all the trustees, and we've seen an increase in graduation rates from 72 to now 88%. I'm sorry, to now 88%. And of course, crime is down 45% during my time as mayor. There's a lot of great things happening in our city. There's a lot more work to do, and hopefully we can share all that with you tonight at tonight's debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeGiorgio?
Good evening, and thank you for welcoming myself and Mayor Spano. Mayor Spano, thank you for accepting. I think I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I am a 65-year-old, retired, successful businessman with 42 years of solid life and business experience. I'm a proud husband of 46 years to my beautiful wife, Betty, who's in the audience, who together we moved into our first home in Yonkers 37 years ago. We raised our 2 children and now our 4 granddaughters in Yonkers. 3 of the 4 girls attend our Yonkers school system. A little bit about myself. I was in the retail business. We had 39 stores throughout Yonkers, Westchester, Mount Vernon, the Bronx, and after 42 years, we decided to pack it in and spend more time with my family. I was a 10-year president of the Italian City Club of Yonkers, a 25-year member of CHOW, Congress of Italian American Organizations, and I served as a 25-year member of the Bronx Westchester Kiwanis Club, where I served as New York State Lieutenant Governor. I was a past president of the Hub 3rd Avenue Business Association, which I started the most successful bid in New York City. We became a model bid. I was a member of the Bronx Chamber of Commerce for many years. I was a charter and founding member of the Mount Vernon Police Foundation, just to mention a few. I've been honored by numerous amount of humanitarian awards, way too many to mention. I got you. Given a chance, I'm looking forward to serve Yonkers.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Okay, we'll move to the question period. I have some from the audience. There's still time to hand in a question up here if you haven't done that. We're going to alternate the order, starting with Mr. DeGiorgio on the first question. And I have been given a couple of questions by the sponsoring organizations. So I'll take one of those first. It's a pretty straightforward question. What steps can be taken to reduce gun violence?
Okay, that's a good question. What steps can be taken? Well, I think the vetting process of someone going for, first of all, the problem with gun violence is not by law-abiding citizens who have carry permits and obtain guns the correct way. Okay, to get guns off the street, we had a major problem like this in the Bronx for many years. We still do. It's a major problem throughout the United States. Steps that I would take personally, I would make it a very tough crime if you get caught using a gun in a violent crime. If you get caught with the gun, I believe what Bloomberg had done in New York City was the first time you automatically got 1 year jail time. So that would be some of the steps I would take. But we have to make sure that the guns aren't getting into the hands of the mentally ill or the wrong people, right from the beginning with the gun process permit process.
Thank you. You know, that's a very, very important problem, story. You know, when you think about the fact that here we are, the 112th largest city in all of America, and as your mayor, I've signed on to every anti-gun legislation known to man, whether it be here in New York or what they can do nationally. But if there are no laws that govern the porous borders, the borders that we have, where guns can travel in and out of our borders and fall into the hands of people it shouldn't fall into. But in the meantime, as we grapple with the federal government and trying to get them to do what they need to do, what do we do here locally? Well, here locally, you know, as you know, crime is down across the board. It's down in every category. It's down 45%. We were just listed by the FBI as the safest city of our size in America. How do we do it? Well, we did it by instituting good, smart policies of having our police department work interlocking with our community. Pizza with a cop. Sounds silly, right? Pizza with a cop. Stop and shake. Coffee with a cop. In doing these types of things, we're getting the community to work hand in glove with our police officers so that they're proactive in their approach. And that's why we've seen such a drastic reduction in crime. There's more work that needs to be done. But at the same time, we need to use the bully pulpit of this office to get Washington to do more to reduce guns nationwide.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, this is this is another one from the sponsoring organizations, and we'll begin with Mr. Spano. Many communities worldwide and across the country are using solar and wind energy to lower the cost of energy in public buildings. Would you support promoting and developing this in Yonkers?
Oh, absolutely. You know, if there's one thing that we can do in terms of trying to reduce the carbon footprint is encourage people to use forms of energy that will save or that will reduce our carbon footprint. One of the ways to do that is to allow for corporations to come in, sponsor, and allow our government to actually put in place measures that will allow you to pay down for alternate forms of energy. In other words, if a company wants to come in and make investments and allow you to put solar panels in your house, and we can take that payment for that, then obviously we accomplish two goals. You get a low interest loan, and at the same time, we're reducing the carbon footprint by allowing this type of energy and this type of alternate use of energy to take place. It's one of the proposals that we have talked about. It's something that we hope will get put in place, but like I said, it'll take some time.
Okay.
Okay? Well, I've been looking into solar energy for a few years now. And for my own house, I'm not privy to what's going on down City Hall, who's been approached them, what companies, but there's several different types of solar energy that's out there. There's solar panels where they'll come and put them on your house, and they won't charge you anything, and they reap the benefits, paying back to Con Edison, and then there's ones where you have to lay out $35,000, $40,000, and then somewhere down the road, over 30 years, you'll get the money back. I believe in solar energy, and I believe in reducing the carbon footprint for the future. Our children are our future, and what we do now is going to represent what 100 years from now to our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. I am definitely in favor of solar energy. I've seen different cities do windmills. There's something that I think they're trying to introduce now into Westchester, I know they're doing it in Rockland, where people don't have to put solar panels on their roof. They joined this thing called a solar farm. And what it is they get acreage of solar panels, and somehow you pay or you get a reduced rate on your bills through joining this farm. It's a cooperative type of deal. But yes, I am definitely in favor of saving the planet.
All right. Okay, I'm going to take one from one of the cards that's been handed in, and again, I guess there's still some cards coming in, and I'll get some more. All right, and we'll start here with Mr. DeGiorgio. This reads, "We are new to the city. Is Yonkers a sanctuary city? How is the city planning on handling, if that's the case, if so, it says, how is the city handling undocumented aliens in Yonkers?"
Well, one of the things that I see driving up and down Yonkers Avenue every day, I see these undocumented day laborers. And I would come up with a plan to have these day laborers come like a work call and set up like a particular contractor to have their name put down, like their specialties, electrician, concrete work, plaster, tile work. And I think we have to get these people off the street, these undocumented laborers. And listen, I would rather have a contractor bring somebody to my house that we know where they live, even if they're illegals. We know where they live, we know who they are. If they're gonna come to walk down the street, have one of our children walk down the street and something happens, I wanna know who that person is, okay? Without the threat of deporting them. Now, do I believe Yonkers should be a sanctuary city? No, I do not, okay? I believe it may happen, but I'm not in favor of it. I think the government's shoving too much stuff down our throats as far as stuff like that goes. Especially, we shouldn't be a sanctuary, so we're going to lose too much from the government if we become a sanctuary city.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Okay, thank
Yonkers is not a sanctuary city. Now, I don't want to lead people to believe, especially the good residents of our city, that there's some magic cloak comes down and protects people from the INS. If the federal government decides to walk into Yonkers and to exert their authority, there's not a lot that we can do. But what we can do is this. I issued an order through our police department that when our police officers are engaged with the public, they are not to ask about their, whether or not they are a citizen or not. That they are here to protect and serve the residents of this city. Every single person, every single resident, whether they're here legally or not. Our job, and my job as a locally elected mayor, is to serve and protect and make sure that our people, our residents, are safe in their community. We do not look for your residency or where you've come from, unless, of course, you pose a threat to the neighborhood at large. If you do pose a threat to the neighborhood at large, then we will hold you. But if you don't, and if you're not a part of any kind of violent history, we will not hold you. And that's the order that we have, and that's what I follow as your mayor.
Rebuttal?
Rebuttal?
Yes.
30 seconds.
Okay, 30-second rebuttal. I think we have to know who the people are in this city, whether they're legal or illegal. I do agree we need to protect everybody. But if we don't know who these illegal people are, it's costing us tax dollars in schools and every form of taxes that you're paying if these illegal people are living here. And we need to know who they are. I'm not in favor of just dragging people out, but you have to know who these people are. And yes, we should protect them, but it does cost the taxpayer money having them here.
Thank you. Mr. Spano? You don't have to.
No, I think I made my point. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Even living in White Plains, I know this is a question that has to come up tonight. There are two cards here on it. I will simply ask you, and starting this time with Mr. Spano, to discuss the issue of mayoral term limits.
Term limits. You know,
You knew it had to come up.
yes, I figured that was going to come up tonight. You know, ladies and gentlemen, remember, you can choose to change the charter in one of two ways, either by referendum or by council majority vote. The city council quite clearly knew that there was support for term limits in the city. What the council decided to do was to explore the option of doing the three-term model of term limits versus the two-term model. Westchester County, which we're a part of, is a three-term limit. So there were a number of public hearings. Matter of fact, one more public hearing that was needed. There were 3 weeks before the legislation was put forth and then passed by the council and then signed by myself. The decision was made based on the support of the public that came out. There was no outcry saying no to 3 terms. The outcry was, we want term limits, and we have term limits. And of course, like I said, at the end of the day, it's really up to all you as to whether or not I get a 3rd term, because on election day, you'll exercise your term limit and pick whoever it is you want to serve as your mayor.
Okay? Well, let me start off by saying I voted for this man twice. Okay? I'm not going to lie. I know Michael over 30 years. Mayor Spano, I shouldn't call him Michael. The biggest complaint that I'm getting going door to door and speaking to groups of people and speaking to individuals, besides taxes, the #1 complaint is the way it was done. It was voted on twice by the referendum from the people back, I guess it was 1991, I don't know if I did my homework correctly, but the city of Yonkers voted on it twice, and they turned it down. If a president is doing a good job, okay, and his term is 2 years, that's it, he doesn't get a 3rd term. So it's pretty simple. I don't believe personally that the 3rd term was voted on correctly, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Then we'll move to, this is definitely a different question. Why are garbage cans removed from Yonkers bus stops and streets? And how will you clean up Yonkers of the litter and garbage? Is that true? We'll start with,
You're an
starts here.
answer, so no.
Well, I don't know if
Actually, I should answer that.
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if that's true about trash pails being removed. But obviously, we have to keep our city safe, okay, prosperous, and clean. So, I mean, if they are removed, I mean, I hate to keep going back and forth, but we had issues like this, you know, in other cities that I had stores and businesses in, And we had to address it. And you have to have trash removal. I mean, they have these things now, I forgot what they call them, but it's an electronic garbage pail. They cost $5,000, but you could put a week's worth of trash in there at a busy intersection, and it compacts it into a small little thing, and somebody goes and takes it away. That's why I'm a big proponent of BIDs, business improvement districts, okay? Business improvement districts do three things. They keep the district clean, safe, and they promote it. That's the total thing that a BID does, business improvement district. And like I said, I'm a proponent of that. They work. There's 69 of them throughout New York City. I think we have 1 or 2 here in Westchester and Yonkers. And they work. It's simple as that. I mean, it helps keep the streets clean. Thank you.
You know, one of the most frustrating things that any mayor will have to deal with, obviously, is the issue of trash. We have 451 trash cans in and about the city of Yonkers, at train stations, at bus stops, in front of local businesses. 451. Now, as your mayor, the 451 dirtiest locations in all of Yonkers are exactly where those garbage cans were. So we had to make a decision. Now, the decision was, at the end of last season, at the end of the summer, was to remove those garbage cans. You know, I couldn't even get our Teamsters to carry brooms and shovels on the garbage truck. So you're picking up the trash, you're running home, and we're left with a mess. So we had to take a stand. Now, what we did was we put them back, but we put them back in the places where they needed to be put back. One by one, they were put back. Not every single one of them. And in some places, if you go to the McLean Avenue bid, or if you go into the end up on Lake Avenue, they're happy they're gone. In other places, they needed them back, and we put them back where they belonged. But it's about being proactive and fighting for a change and getting a change in behavior. And we were not going to get a change in behavior doing what we were doing before. Now, I'm glad to say that things are getting better.
Want to speak?
Yeah. Number one, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware that there is a McLean Avenue bid. I mean, I live a few blocks from McLean Avenue. Is there a McLean Avenue bid?
Mama.
Well, Mama, it's a merchant association. It's a little bit different. It is different. Yeah, it's very
It's
different.
different.
My question
Using
is,
the term loosely.
and I don't want to pick on any one group, you know, union workers, non-union workers, but I know that the sanitation workers, they work 2-3 hours a day. So why can't we have them sweeping the other 6-7 hours they're getting paid for?
Thank you. Well, that's 30 seconds is short. Did you want to follow up on that or no?
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. This is a question. I mean, I read article the other day about California, New York City. We certainly know, and White Plains, and all over Westchester. The question is about the homeless population, and so the question is, what steps have you taken, or would you take, to deal with the homeless population in Yonkers? And we're starting with Mr. Spano.
In South Yonkers, we have 9 shelters in a 1-block radius. We have some 20 different organizations that are there to help with the homeless. That's been a real problem. Now, for those of you who don't know this, the way the government works is the city's not, your city tax dollars are not there to provide for the homeless. We pay county taxes, and our county tax dollars are there to provide for the shelter and the wraparound services of the homeless. Now, we have been pushing Westchester government for a while. You know, and I know Gordon's here, and Gordon's a good friend, and I'm not talking about Gordon or any of our guys specifically. I'm talking about we've been pushing Westchester government for a while to do something about the homeless community. And it's fallen on deaf ears for a long time, until now. It's been a battle, but it's a battle that I took on as your mayor. I closed down 2 shelters. I didn't close them down. I'm sorry, I take that back. I didn't close them down. I issued summonses and made them come back and made those shelters livable for human inhabitation without closing them down. But at the same time, I went after the county, and I went after them hard. Police department, fire department, building department, codes. We went in and we got them to make some changes. But it's not going to be easy unless Westchester does more to provide for wraparound services for all of our homeless.
Thank you.
Well, listen, we live in the United States of America. It's the greatest country in the world. It is a shame that we do have these homeless people on the streets, and we do see them. I agree with the mayor. The way I handled it when I was president of the South Bronx Businessmen Association, this was a real big issue. We had not only homeless, but we had a lot of drug addicts that were in the street. So we figured out, listen, we can't get the city at the time to pay for it. So the approach that I took, I called in all the different local churches, and I sat down with the pastors and the ministers and the reverends, and they were also very worried. And I said, what can we do? We know we can't eradicate it. We know it's not going to get done. But what can we do to lessen it when it's 5 degrees out and 15 degrees out, to get these people off the street? This was happening by Cardinal Hayes High School, and it was happening by Pius High School, different girls' high schools, and we got together, and it actually worked. I did it with Immaculate Conception Church, St. Mary's Church, Cardinal Hayes. We all worked together to try. We couldn't eradicate it, but we lessened it. So I think that may be the approach. If you can't get big government to do it, if you can't get help from the state, you have to take a hands-on, proactive way of doing things, and that's to do it yourself. Get out there, talk to people who want to help, because there are a lot of people that want to help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just add one
ahead.
quick thing.
Go ahead.
Remember, 30 years ago, New York State did what they called deinstitutionalization, because they said, we're going to take all these people out of the institutions and put them in community-based care. And then what happened? The economy went south, and they took all the money out of community-based care. The homeless are still there, but they're in our streets. We've hired 2 homeless people, the 2 homeless advisors, but we need to do more, and we need to count on our county to do more with New York State.
Do you care to follow up?
I'm all right.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put 2 things together here. One of the cards handed in asks a rather broad question: why are the public schools struggling for funds, and what's the solution? And one of the questions presented by one of the organizations is a little more specific. How do you believe non-academic activities such as sports and creative arts in the schools should be funded, and what might be your plan to meet those costs? And we'll start here.
Well, I think everyone in this room knows that our Yonkers school system, which is a very good school system, we have very good teachers, we have wonderful students, but the system's broke. And the system's been broke for the 37 years that I'm living in Yonkers. We've been hearing the same thing year in, year out, that there's never enough money in the budget for the school system. We're talking about, there's supposed to be, I heard the other day, we had a debate, and there was 4,000 extra children that have to go to school, and we have to build new schools, and it's going to cost billions of dollars. Why don't we fix what we have? Why don't we extend what we have, add on to what we have? Why don't we make it safe for a child to walk up a flight of stairs in a school without having broken stairs, without having pieces of metal sticking up out of it, okay? And then we're going to go back to the same thing, oh, we don't have the funding. Well, let's find the funding. Let's do something about it. We've had enough time, okay? My opponent was in the assembly for 20 years, and right now we have Andrew Stewart-Cousins and Shelley Mayers. Let's get some more money, okay? Every year we keep hearing the same thing, schools are under budget. When is Yonkers going to have a straight budget, a balanced budget? It's not happening. I don't see it happening, and this is one of the reasons why I believe I wanted to run for mayor. We need to fix a broken system.
Okay, thank you.
No one agrees with you more about the system being broken, and I'll just put it to you this way. Many of you are homeowners. If you take what you, the homeowners of Yonkers put into your public school system per pupil, and you take what Buffalo, our sister city, Rochester, our sister city, and Syracuse, and take what they, the locally, put into their schools per pupil, do you know what the numbers add up to? Yonkers, those three cities combined, you still pay more. So for those at the state capitol who think Yonkers needs to do more for our schools, I look at them and I go, are you guys crazy? Are you looking at the numbers to see what it is that our maintenance of effort is over $260 million? That means that just to cost of educating our kids, we're stuck with crumbling schools, crumbling infrastructure. You don't have the ability to do a lot of the things that we want to do. Why? Because our maintenance of effort is greater than the three sister cities combined. That's why I go after Albany so hard. And that's why I have been able to get additional dollars from them each and every year since I've been here. Because I can make the case as somebody who was a former legislator and someone who's now a locally elected official.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. Then my only question is then, why in the past 8 years have we still been, and I understand we all have a common goal, okay? We want the best education, the safest education for our children as possible. So if we all want the same common goal, why are we still not getting the money? We have to get the funding. I understand what you're saying, that we're paying more per capita than these other three cities combined. The system's broke. Something's wrong because the schools aren't getting fixed, and we're losing after-school programs as well.
Thank you.
And for the same reasons that we don't want to continue to drive our taxes up. Remember, in the previous administration, taxes went up nearly 50%. I've been able to cut that in half. And the reasons that we have been able to when I came here, we had no pre-K. When I came here, we had no music, sports, or arts to even speak of. Every year, we have put something back, a little bit at a time, one foot in front of the other, bringing our city and taking our district forward. And that's why we now have a graduation rate that is not 72 anymore, but 88%.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And we'll start this next question with you, Mr. Spano. And this is a question which there's an assumption which I'm not familiar with, but I'll read what the audience member has written. What can be done regarding unauthorized daycare centers being set up in private houses?
You know, like anything else, we need to be informed of it. We need to be told that there is an unauthorized daycare center. When we're told of this, our building department is dispatched. There are laws that protect our communities, but there are also laws that protect the kids from having an unauthorized daycare center in existence. So I'll just ask, like I ask anyone else, and people have come to us with this and other items like this before, you got to tell us. Make sure we know. And then, of course, we'll deal with those issues as they come with us. And if they are illegal and they are there, we'll close them down.
I agree with the mayor on this. If they are illegal daycare centers, the children are at risk. So if somebody knows something, if you see something, say something. You contact the building department, and they will send inspectors out. And if they don't have the proper permits and licenses, they should be closed down. But we can't be all over everywhere in every street in Yonkers. So it has to be participation from the citizens to make a phone call and complain. I do agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Again, this is a question from you in the audience. Another one that gets down to dollars and cents. In managing a budget, what realistically can be done to improve the roads and main thoroughfares in the city? And we're starting here.
As you all know, for the most part, our roads are in shambles, okay? And we do have a lot of problems. We have a big traffic problem, Bronx River Road, Tuckahoe Road, Yonkers Avenue. I have come up with a system and an idea of how to move things along, okay? Maybe totally eliminate the red lights, cameras, but moving forward, creating jobs, okay, with a traffic department, and have traffic officers on these certain corners to move traffic along. And the revenue that we would get from these traffic agents, they would more than pay their salary. And I also believe that we'd make a large profit on it that we could put towards fixing the roads and infrastructure of the streets, what's going on in Yonkers and throughout the county as well. There's not a lot of thought that goes into things. Just to give you an idea, that the Bronx River Parkway, and I know this isn't a city issue, it's a state issue. They closed the ramp getting off Mount Vernon, okay? And now they moved the ramp up another, I don't know, 200-300 yards. Now you have, getting off Bronx River Parkway, you make a left to go to Yonkers and a right to go to Mount Vernon. If they would have just thought it out to move things along, instead of spending hundreds of thousands to close that exit, they should have left the exit open, right turn only Mount Vernon, the next exit left turn only to Yonkers. It would alleviate a lot of problems. But we waste a lot of money in this state.
Thank you.
And one thing we have in Yonkers is plenty of cars. The Northwest Corridor is tolerable. The East-West Corridor in our city, actually the East-West Corridor in the entire county, is very, very difficult. As you know, the East-West Corridors of McLean Avenue, Yonkers Avenue, while they're state arterials, we've been lobbying the state to give us additional dollars to allow for those changes, because we can't make changes to those roadways because they're not our roads. But we've been pushing for them to do enough studies, but to put some funding with the studies. We've also would like to see Westchester County come back with their 5th lane for Tuckahoe Road. We think that that would be really help in terms of dealing with the traffic flow of Tuckahoe Road. As far as the condition of our roads, the city council, I see Mike Breen is here. We put $8 million in the budget, in the capital budget this year, just for repaving, and that's a pretty substantial amount. I think it's probably the most we've put into road repaving in a long time. That's the way to do it, but it's, like I said, it does come with a cost, and it comes at a cost to all of us as taxpayers, but there's a significant amount of money put in this year.
My only question is, okay, so I applaud Mike Breen for getting the $8 million. Was it spread evenly out throughout the city? Because I don't know, I drive back and forth the city every day since I'm out talking to people, and all I see is broken roads. They start to get fixed, a certain area it stops. And I understand there's certain times of year you have to do this, but also, I mean, we have to spread it out and get the whole city up and running. Put curbs in and put sidewalks in and get the streets fixed. Thank you.
Anything further?
I'd like to fix them all at once, but we all know that that can't happen. So what we've seen, if you go down Cedar Lane, if you go, I could probably list you maybe, 60 or 7 different roads that were paved just in the past couple of months. So it can't be done overnight. Cedar Lane needed to have a repaving curb to curb and the curbs replaced. That's $500,000 it costs to do that. And so we would like to do it all at once. We can't do it all at once. It's not realistic, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
One second.
Well, we had,
Okay.
a rebuttal back and forth. You can
Quick jab,
use
it's
some-
an election
use
year,
some-
that's why the roads were fixed.
Use some time in your closing. Audience, hold on. We should hold. Very soon you're gonna have that opportunity. I have one card left out of this whole room. We've had some very broad questions. This one really is very specific, but perhaps it gets to a broader concern. And Mr. Spano will begin over there. And this individual says, I just moved into town, and it took 6 months for a permit to install a mini-split AVAC unit. Well, it's your
HVAC.
handwriting. HVAC.
HVAC.
Yeah, okay, I got it. Okay. Are we doing anything, or would you do anything, to streamline the permitting process?
We are doing a lot to streamline it. The problem is this: we have $3.5 billion worth of economic development happening in the city right now. We are rebuilding every single municipal housing unit. All 2,000 units are being rebuilt. There are an enormous amount of work happening in the city. We're happy with that, but at the same time, there are consequences that come with that, and that's obviously the extra burden that's being placed on our building department. We need to make reforms, and I have. I have replaced the building commissioner with a new commissioner. He's been in there now for the past almost a year. We're seeing lots of changes. We're happy with those changes. The city council, with the recommendations from the new commissioner, has put 9 new employees in the building department, 9 new employees. And so we're starting to see the benefits of that, but it took some time for us to get that all to work. We didn't expect to have this type of boom. I don't think anyone did. We're glad that we're seeing it. It has an overall benefit to all of you as taxpayers, but at the end of the day, it's part of the growing pains that we're experiencing here in Yonkers.
Okay, I feel your pain, whoever that is out there, okay? And I can understand, all right? It's probably easier to get a building permit to put up a building on the waterfront than it is to get a permit to get an HVAC or a patio or anything done. This is nothing new. This has nothing to do with the $3.5 billion economic boom. It's always, in 37 years that I'm here, it's always been an issue trying to get a permit. And then you have to get it inspected. And listen, it's correct. It's the correct way to do things. If you're going to put something up, you want it safe for your family, or you want it safe for your friends, whoever's going to be there. But I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is we need to move a process along a lot quicker than the building department. I go down to the building department. I see the frustration with people. I've tried helping a woman this year who wanted to put a little swimming pool in her backyard. It was everything, they threw everything at her, she just got disgusted. So it's a broken problem, it's a big problem. And it's a broken thing that needs to be fixed. Not here, not just in Yonkers, with all the building departments throughout the state.
Yonkers is, while we're the 4th largest city in New York State, we're still a city small enough that you can reach out and touch your mayor. So call me and ask. And before I leave today, we'll get your number and we'll work on getting your permit done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Quick rebuttal?
Go ahead.
Okay. Maybe I don't believe we don't have a city advocate, do we, Mike? An advocate? I think we need somebody like that. We need a person or develop a department, okay? And you're going to charge the people for permits and stuff, but we need a city advocate. We need somebody who's going to listen to your problems and listen to what you need done and try and fast track different projects in the city, not drag them along for years and months where people get disgusted. If you live here, you want to stay here. You want to bring new people in here. You want to welcome them. Okay. I see you stop. I'll be over in a minute. I've been really good.
Thank you.
But thank you, and I appreciate, and I feel your pain.
Okay. Okay, I'm out of questions. We've got a little extra time. They gave me a time for the last question, and we've got a couple of extra minutes. So why don't we say that those closing statements let you add in anything that you wish had been asked, but that wasn't asked. Give you a minute and a half on the closing statements, and we'll begin here with Mr. DeGiorgio.
Okay. Given the chance, I am looking to solve many issues facing Yonkers as your mayor, and I will give back the quality of life we all deserve. Party lines divide us, and Yonkers issues will unite us. I believe in transparency. In closing, I believe the people of Yonkers and I'm asking you to believe in me. I'm not a career politician. I'm a community leader. I'm a parent just like you, a grandparent, and I want to make Yonkers a better place for my children, my grandchildren, and my children's children. If we don't make the hard decisions now, Yonkers will fail. Why do we have a budget deficit each and every year? Every family has to live within their means. Why can't Yonkers give the service that our people need and deserve? given the chance, I will be totally accountable to every citizen in Yonkers and every taxpayer. Okay. I hope everybody thinks on November 5th, or if you vote early, about giving a businessman a chance to run the city. Thank you.
That's tough. That's tough. I did say hold your applause till the end, which is after the last closing, and that'll be for both. But
Which is
go
after
right ahead.
me. So, but let me just start out by saying thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you for, whether you voted for me or not, for giving me the opportunity to fulfill my life's dream, which was to be mayor of the city of Yonkers. You know, I've worked hard, and I've worked hard on the issues that matter most, whether it's providing for a good, solid economic development base here in the city of Yonkers, some $3.5 billion worth of economic development activity happening all across the city, the reforms that we've had to make to the Board of Education. Despite the fact that that is a district that is currently underfunded, we have continued to make strides and to move that district forward from a 72% graduation rate to an 88% graduation rate. And while I inherited a city that was under a Department of Justice investigation for its police department, we were able to take that, turn that around, and reduce the crime rate 45%, at the same time see complaints against our officers drop by 85%. That's the type of work I've done. We have a lot more work to do. MGM has now purchased Yonkers Raceway. They want to build a convention center, and they want to build a hotel. Unbelievable what they want to do. Lionsgate is now coming to Yonkers, and they want to build a studio here in our city. There's interest, there's activity, there's people who want to come here, live here, work, and make a family here, and all because of this wonderful community. I ask for your support on Election Day. Thank you.
No, not rebuttal. Okay. Right. And that's a round of applause for both candidates. And that's exactly what this is supposed to be, a great civil discussion between two candidates. Terrific. Thank you to both of them and to you as the audience. We'll take a short break between now and starting the next part.
Let me welcome everybody here this evening. For those of you who weren't here for the earlier part of the evening, the mayoral debate, I want to thank you all for coming out. My name is Steve Wagner. I'm the president of the Armourville Neighborhood Association, and I want to acknowledge the other associations who are co-sponsoring with us this evening. It is the Lawrence Park West Association, the Longvale Homeowners Association, Garrett Park Neighborhood Association, Brookside Residents Association, Colonial Heights Association of Taxpayers, and also the Mohegan Heights Homeowners Association. I want to thank all of them for their help and support, which is evidenced by the turnout we have here tonight. So once again, thanks to all of them and their leadership for helping us pull this together. I also want to acknowledge the League of Women Voters, who works with us every year to make this event happen. Great organization. We've had a long-standing relationship with them, so we welcome that affiliation. We especially want to thank Sarah Lawrence College, who for every year, for the last number of years, has been working with us and setting this night aside so we can take part in this important activity. And for those of you who don't know, this is the bright, shiny, brand new Barbara Walters Student Center, which just recently opened. It's an amazing facility. I urge all of you to take the tour, wander around, and have a look. And for you late night coffee drinkers, the dining area is open till 1 a.m. So you can fuel up before you head home.
Thank you. You didn't spike it, did you?
Most of all, what matters about what we're doing here tonight is that this is your chance to hear from the people who are going to represent your interests. I'll spare you the extended remarks I made at the beginning of the evening, but suffice it to say that we are all faced with a lot of challenges on the national level. You know, they seem at times overwhelming, But the reality is right here in our own backyard is where we as individual citizens can really make a difference on our city, on our county, and on the state level. As Mayor Spano said, we get to reach out and touch these people. I know I do as a community leader, so do many of my colleagues, but most importantly, it's a chance for you to see government working the right way. But it doesn't happen if we don't have lines of communication, and part of that starts with all of the people like you showing up at events like this. So for those of you who are here tonight for the first time, I encourage you, go back, tell your neighbors, the next time there's a meet and greet, there's a political town hall, or a debate like tonight, bring a few of them along. It will pay off great benefits in the long run. So again, thank you very much for coming out. I'm going to introduce Paul Schwartz, our moderator for the League of Women Voters, who will tell you what the ground rules are for the debate. And I want to thank Sue Weisfeld, who once again put this whole thing together with the League on our behalf. So thanks to Sue for yeoman work. And Debbie Finkelstein, who is the events director here at Sarah Lawrence. As I said earlier tonight, she only had about a dozen events this week before this one she had to get ready for. So my hat's off to her for doing this, including giving us a little more real estate over here to work with. So thank you all again for coming out. Thank the candidates and thank the League.
All right, maybe I need to go over a couple of, it's great to have a little more space, and I see a few more chairs if anybody needs to sit. But we're going to proceed to the second part of tonight's program. And one thing I could add that I didn't know it at the beginning, so that's why I didn't say, that the video recording being made this evening will be available on the League of Women Voters of Rivertown's website, which is lwv-rivertowns.org, and will be available, I guess, periodically up to Election Day next Tuesday. So the candidates for county legislator are before you, Gordon Burrows and Ruth Walter. The ground rules, I would just briefly say again, a minute, because some of you, I think, were not here at the beginning, a minute and a half for an opening statement, a minute and a half for answers to questions, both the league questions and your questions, with optional rebuttal time if requested, 30 seconds rebuttal time on the questions, a minute closing statement. And as I said before and always do, I will reserve the right to award rebuttal time at the close if warranted by the content of a closing statement. The instruction for you as the audience, which is tough, the audience for the first half almost made it all the way through, is that you hold your applause until the very end, until the end of the second closing statement. And in case you turned it back on during the intermission, turn it off, all right? Mine's still off. Or I would be getting pictures of my grandchild. That's the thing, you see. Okay. All right. Well, oh, good. Okay. We'll begin with opening statements, and we flipped a coin. We'll start with Ms. Walter.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm not going to thank every organization that participated in this because I only have 90 seconds. My name is Ruth Walter, and I want to be your next county legislator. The first thing people ask me is, what is a county legislator? And the first answer is it's a $2 billion budget. It is $2 billion of your taxes, and they are spent in very important ways. Specifically, they are spent on things that we believe enhance the quality of life of people in Westchester County. And it is funded in three ways. First of all, a very little bit of your property taxes. Second of all, quite a bit of your sales taxes. And third, it's funded by state and federal reimbursements. And the thing that matters in this particular race, in this particular district, is our district, District 15, has not been getting the money or the attention that it needs. And that's why I'm running. I'm running because of you, and I'm running because of what exactly it is that we need in this district. We have flooding issues. We have the sewer system has problems. We have our retail strips, including Central Park Avenue, are under assault from online retailing. And what we need is an active person in this role, and we want somebody that's actually going to be working for us. I'm a small business owner. I've had a business for 10 years, successful on Pondfield Road. I'm a mother. I'm a wife of 25 years, and I ask for your vote on November the 5th. Thank you.
Okay, no, that's, I'm sorry. You want me to use this? Really, it'll go much better if we just listen and hold your applause till the end, okay? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Paul. I want to thank the League of Women Voters, as well as all the homeowner groups that are here today and that are hosting this meeting. I want to also thank Ruth, who's run a very spirited campaign. I want to thank all of you for coming today. And I walked in today, I noticed that there are some of my friends and supporters, but there's a lot more supporters and friends of Ruth's here, holding up posters, and that's okay. But I want to address my comments to those of you who haven't made a decision yet, who are really on the line and deciding on who should be the legislator representing this district. The primary difference, I believe, between my opponent and me is the experience that I've had in local government and my work experience. I'm an attorney of 33 years, practicing here in Westchester County. I'm a former Yonkers City Council member, having worked 10 years on the Yonkers City Council, 7 of which were the majority leader. I've been on the county board for 15 years. 8 of those years I have been the minority whip, positions of leadership voted in by my colleagues. In the last term, this 2018 to 2019, my experience and the qualities that I have as a lawyer saved this county $20 million over a 5-year period on the Liberty Alliance contract. I don't believe Ruth would have had that experience. She's not a lawyer. She hasn't been in government. It's important that we wind up having leadership. I'm a dedicated legislator. I care about this area. I'm experienced. I'm lifelong, and I want to hold my position.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to questions again. And something that I said at the outset but didn't say just before this session, that there should be no private taping of this. There's a tape being made of the whole program, and as I said, it's going to be available on the Rivertowns League website. It's so easy to take a videotape today. Please do not. It's against the league policies. We'll begin questions. The first one will go first to Mr. Burrows. And this is one from the sponsoring organizations. And I will ask it very, very broadly because it's about affordable housing. And of course, there was a lawsuit, there was a settlement, there's been such discussion about affordable housing in Westchester County. And so I would say, let me give each of you the opportunity to express your thoughts about what should be done going forward in affordable housing in Westchester.
That's a great question. And I think one of the issues that I am most proud of during my term as the county legislator is on this very issue. You might remember that we were sued by the Anti-Discrimination League, and as a result, County Executive Spano entered into a contract, an agreement with the court, which obligated us to build 750 units. I, as well as 5 other lawyers on the board, all voted against this matter. It was a bad plan, and it was not something that served this county. For 7 years, I battled with County Executive Astorino against affordable housing, and in particular, the housing urban development, that said that the home rule laws of Bronxville and every other community were discriminatory, and that there would be no height or density regulations, that there would be no impact on water. Imagine in the village of Bronxville that you could build any building that you wanted, any density that you wanted. That was wrong back then. It was wrong when the HUD wound up indicating that we had to do it, and a 7-year battle resulted with HUD capitulating, saying that Westchester didn't discriminate, and it preserved home rule throughout the county, and it preserved home rule in the village of Bronxville. So if you ask me what was the best accomplishment I've made over the last 15 years as your county legislator, is preserving home rule and allowing you to go and be able to, you the municipality, to decide how it was going to go and govern
Thank
its,
you.
its villages.
Thank you. Ms. Walter?
Excuse me, do I have 30 seconds or 90 seconds?
A minute and 30, and with rebuttal time if you request.
Okay, sorry about that. So I would think that my opponent would be proudest of his advocacy for the 12-year term limits that he ran on. That seems to me to be more relevant as he's seeking 16 years. My opponent talks about the past a lot, and his experience versus my experience as a small business owner, a successful business owner in this retail environment that's difficult. I do think the county has a role to play in creating and supporting affordable housing. We have seniors who need housing. My mother was a resident of the Wartburg, and that has an affordable housing component to it. She was in a different place, but I don't think that we need to be fighting with HUD, and I think we lost a lot of community redevelopment funds during the Astorino years. It was a very contentious time, and I think that the Astorino policy of fighting with HUD lost us a lot of money. We do have a homeless problem, especially in Yonkers. It seems like they have given Yonkers way too many homeless shelters, and I'm ready to work on these issues, and I'm ready to make a solution and not be constantly stopping what's going to happen and go forward in this county. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Here's one that's really gets down to earth. After all these years, why has there been no improvement in Bronx River Parkway flooding? And added, as of yesterday.
So I was walking with a friend yesterday, and I saw 2 cars submerged on the Bronx River Parkway, just where this district begins, as we're coming into the Bronx River. And it was shocking, and it was distressing because it looked like there might be a person in one of the cars. It looked like Katrina. And what was very distressing was somebody walking by saying, "This always happens." Now, I have knocked on over 2,000 doors in this campaign. I have talked to people all across the district. I can show you the map. And one of the things that comes up on all sides of this district, including the west side, is that the flooding is continual. The flooding is a problem for businesses. We are getting flooding in our basements. It's a problem for schools when they can't open, and it's a problem for homeowners. And so we constantly hear, well, we've gotten X dollars, but I don't see any improvement. I would do something like what Scarsdale has done, which has gotten county funds for wetlands restoration along both of our main rivers, which is the Bronx River and the Sawmill. And we need to have more active and more creative solutions. Scarsdale also does a rain barrel promotion where they give people rain barrels. And when we see yesterday's problem was a flash flood, we need to have creative entrepreneurial solutions for flooding that are low cost. And I don't see any new ideas from my opponent. I hear only about the past.
Thank you.
Flooding in our area is, again, one of the major issues. And as the county legislator, I inherited a lot of those problems. What I immediately tried to do is set aside money in order to dredge the Bronx River Parkway, river, as well as the Sawmill River. We wound up having numerous meetings, had the Army Corps of Engineers come in to determine what the cost would be of dredging the Bronx River. I remember when I was a young boy, you could actually see people ice skating on the Bronx River. Right now, you could walk across it. That's one of the reasons that are creating problems, because there's not enough flow, and the sediment that's in the Bronx River makes the flow of the river more continuous. To make a long story short, I've been setting aside $1 million in the capital improvement plan for the last 12 years. Some of that money has been used to just address that problem. Any and all capital projects that have been done along the Bronx River or the Sawmill River are intentionally done with the intent of trying to mitigate flooding. You've seen work at the Crane Bridge. The Bronx River where Crane Ridge Bridge meets has been expanded to decrease the flow of the river. We set up the Bronx River Advisory Board, the Sawmill River Advisory Board to address all of these issues. This is a problem that we are addressing with every capital project. In Ridge Hill, we made sure when they were building that project that underneath the project, they wound up having the ability to capture a lot of water.
So I feel like during the Astorino years, we saw a lot of backdoor deals. We saw Playland being basically given to Standard Amusements, which had never run an amusement park before. We saw this IMA signed in behind closed doors without full notice to the people that were impacted in it. I believe that one of the biggest reasons people are cynical about their government is because they don't hear enough about what's actually happening. Since I ran, my opponent has now begun to send out emails like every 3 days, but they're not substantive. They're not telling us why is he voting on one particular thing? What is coming down the line? Where exactly are the dollars coming? And what are his solutions for high taxes if that's his most important issue? And what we see here, again, is a deal that we didn't see before. We didn't hear about this, we didn't see it, and that's my fault about it. Whether it's the best project for that field, I think that we can talk about that, but why is the community not involved? And when I am so fortunate as to be elected, I will be communicative about what it is that I'm taking votes on, and there's gonna be no backdoor deals. Thank you.
First of all, this wasn't a backroom deal. It was a 15-year project that was worked with County Supervisor Colavito, Mayor Marvin, 2 mayors in Yonkers, 5 mayors in Mount Vernon, and it was publicized over that 15-year period of time. It was publicized when the county board voted for it, 16-0. For those people who don't know about Scout Field, it's located off of Midland Avenue. The field was a vacant field, open field. What we did was create a ball field so that children could play on it. We allowed for our dogs to still walk on the park and nature walkers to still use the park. It is a home run, in my opinion. You indicated there is a lot of opposition. Yes, there's a lot of opposition. There is a lot of support for the project as well. And to say that it wasn't publicized, I did 2 newsletters on this subject. I spoke over at the Bronxville community town hall meetings. I spoke about it on a regular basis. We wound up having dialogue with Mayor Amiconi of Yonkers. We then had discussion with Mayor Spano of Yonkers. We wound up, I as a Yonkers councilman wanted to use this field for our children in Yonkers. Both mayors did not want it. This wound up going to the court. So for my opponent to say that we did not bring it out in the public eye and this was a backdoor deal, that's just simply wrong. And I believe, Ruth, and I say this as nicely as I can, you're being very cavalier with the truth.
Can I have a rebuttal? Can I have a
Not your
rebuttal,
turn.
please?
Yes. Certainly. Yes.
So if you look at my opponent's website on the county board, it says he has never lost an election by more, he's won every election by 70%. So I think we need to talk a little bit about the truth. And when you say you've sent it out in newsletters, they come out once a year. And we just don't hear enough from my opponent on what exactly he's doing, what exactly he stands for. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and it's a lot of hot air. So I think that we can improve things without being secretive about them, and I think we can improve things without disenfranchising the people who live in this district.
Thank you. Okay.
Do you want me to reply?
Well, it's, you know,
Again,
If you
this
wish.
has been public notice. When you wind up voting on something on the county board, we are required, mandated by the charter, to give public notice. Public notice was provided. We had no speakers. I've told you I've done newsletters on the topic. I've spoken to the respective leaders in the community. I've done meetings before the Bronxville trustees. People just didn't care, and it's not because I didn't make them aware of it. They were made aware of it often.
okay. All right. I'm gonna hope that we keep everything civil and to discussion of issues. And let's take this one. I'm going to add a little to what the audience member wrote down. It has to do with Westchester County as a sanctuary county or not. I would say this is the question is what should the relationship between county law enforcement and what we commonly know as ICE be with reference to the undocumented in the county. And that's first for Mr. Burrows.
Well, I was here, as many of you were, when Mike Spano spoke. And he said that Yonkers is not a sanctuary city. I disagree with him. Westchester County is a sanctuary county, and I voted no against it. Now, you'll have those people who voted in favor of it, saying it wasn't a sanctuary county because it doesn't play into their verbiage. You'll have those who voted against it that'll say it's clearly a sanctuary county, and I'll let you guys decide. The law is now different. When an immigrant or any person is arrested, in the past, we were mandated and required to call ICE. And ICE had the ability to come in here and arrest somebody and decide whether this person was illegally into the country or not. Now, that's not the case. Now you have to have an order to show cause written by a judge in order to go and get ICE to come in there. I spoke with a resident just last week while I was campaigning, and this resident started crying in front of me because his nephew had died at the hands of an illegal immigrant. Now, you could say that that shouldn't have happened or it should happen, and bottom line is we had the police commissioner under the Astorino administration say that we were in jeopardy of losing funding, and then when Astorino was out of office, we had a new police commissioner who said it wasn't going to be affected. In my opinion, Westchester County is a sanctuary county, and we are potentially jeopardizing funding.
Thank you.
So I think it's strange to say, in my opinion, because it's actually not a sanctuary county. What it is the county police are not permitted to call ICE at the end of a disposition of a case. I was the court clerk in the village of Bronxville, and we were not calling the INS at the time. When you have a court system where people are afraid to come forward, everybody in this room, everybody in this county is made less safe. So what we want is for people who reside in this county, in this district, to be able to come to court to testify that they have been robbed or raped or have had some violence towards them without the fear that they will be deported by the court themselves. This is not a sanctuary city. What it is just not notifying the INS, or at the time was called the INS, the ICE now. And what that does is when we had a defendant who was not documented, the person just didn't call the INS at that moment to make sure that they picked them up. And that is what they have put into place. And what my opponent has done is, again, pit one person against the other. We are all here together. We need to make a full census count to make sure we don't lose funding at the federal level. This is playing into the hate and division that we see at the national level. We are here together. We are a community, and we need to be good to each other, and we need to be safe. Thank you.
Okay. That's tough. Whoa. Okay. I know. It's tough. That was an applause line, and you couldn't help yourself. But I've asked you, and I will ask you again, to hold your applause until the end. Okay? So we'll move on to, this is, what is your plan to stimulate the local economy and bring more job opportunities to District 15? And this begins here.
So I am a small business owner. We have been in business for 10 years. I think I'm excellent experience for this job. My store has survived under very difficult conditions. We know that people are shopping on Amazon more than they are coming out, but we know that the local retailer has a very big impact on the economy. So not only have we brought $5 million into the economy, we have also employed over 85 young young people, giving them that very important first job. And we are also a link to all of the different producers of the things that we sell. We sell cheese and other fine foods. And so what I propose is a Central Park Business Improvement District. We need to encourage small businesses to go into these vacant stores. We need to help them, and we know how to do this. We know how to navigate leases and get funding. And it's important that the county play a role. And we have seen the improvement in Yonkers for the different business improvement districts. But there are no new ideas coming from my opponent. In fact, I like to think of it as an empty storefront, because that's what we did in our life. We took an empty storefront and we turned it into an institution, and that's what I will do at the county level for District 15.
Okay.
I believe that the legislation that is currently going on in White Plains, and again, they're all meaningful legislations in and of themselves, but when you take the whole, it starts cutting somebody in different parts, and essentially the businesses now are bleeding to death. Meaningful legislation that has been tried to be passed and passed by the Democratic board is earned sick time leave. That requires companies now with 5 or more employees to provide an hour of sick time when somebody has worked for 30 hours. So imagine you're a small business with 5 employees, and now you're required to ensure that every employee that's worked a week and a half gets 1 hour of sick time. That is killing the small business. John Ravitz, the president of the Business Council, was against that legislation, and I voted no. Even when we tried to go and curtail the legislation and modify it to make it 10 people, it was denied by my Democratic colleagues. Increasing the sales tax by 1% doesn't help small business. My opponent was for that. Banning the box legislation, which is not able to find out when a potential employer can't basically ask about somebody's conviction history, is not helping small businesses. The bid that my opponent has proposed on Central Avenue has been denied. It hasn't been something that wasn't suggested or tried or attempted.
Thank you.
They
Thank
didn't
you.
want it, and they don't want it
Thank
today.
you. Okay.
Get my husband
Got
to
it.
shake it.
Did you want
I do. I am a small business, and I don't believe, a small business owner, I don't believe that earned sick leave is killing small business. I'm in the food service business, and we need to make sure that people who are in the food service, who are often these part-time workers, get sick leave, because I don't want my employees coming to work and sneezing on the cheese, okay? I don't. And I don't want to go to your business and have you preparing food and people being sick. The hepatitis A outbreak at Bar Taco was a danger to this community. And we have to
Thank
make
you.
sure we're not getting people
Thank
sick.
you.
Thank you.
Good. Further? No. Okay. All right. I'm going to reword this one. This is not a local Yonkers, but it certainly is a Westchester County issue that's been discussed for a number of years and back and forth. The person asks, what is the current status of Playland? But I would say, given the controversy over Playland and what to do about Playland as the only government-owned amusement park in the country, I think. What is your position on what the county should be doing about Playland? And we'll start with Mr. Burgos.
Well, I've always been in favor of saving Playland. I have and I'm sure a lot of you as parents have brought your children over to Playland. I certainly did. I know when I was a child, I went to Playland, and I loved the experience, and it's something that we have in our backyard. But I agree that sometimes businesses or county government shouldn't be running a Playland amusement park. And the perfect example was when we were interviewing potential candidates to run Playland, business owner, I said, can you run Playland better than the county has? He said, I'll tell you what, when the Dragon Coaster, which is the most popular ride in the county, is closed for 3 days because you can't get a part, guess what I would do as a private entrepreneur? I'd be flying somebody over to Minnesota to get that part, and that amusement ride would be up in less than 12 hours. Government shouldn't be in the amusement park. We had an agreement with Standard Amusement that would take over that experience. They would go and run it, and we would be making money. We're losing anywhere between $3 and $5 million a year to maintain Playland. I strongly disagree with the direction that the county is taking right now. We have entered into a contract with Standard Amusement, and our county executive, who I really appreciate and thinks he's done a pretty good job, is unilaterally determined that Playland is something that we should no longer be in that contract. We have an exposure of millions of dollars at this point in time because of the litigation we're in. And I just don't believe that this is the right way for us to go. The county board voted for
Thank
this
you.
contract, and we should follow through on the contract.
Thank you. Okay. Anything further on that?
I didn't answer it. Oh,
No, if you want.
yeah. No, I do. I want to answer. So just to step back a little bit, Playland is
30
in
seconds.
Rye. Do I not get a minute and a half?
What?
Do I get a minute and a half?
I'm
My 90 seconds.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'll start again.
Start again.
So, we have a beautiful county. We have many parks. We have many amenities in this county. And my opponent never said a word about a major park in our district, which is Sprain Ridge Pool. And so we can talk about what's going on the other side of the county, but you need to take care of this district first. And that's what I would do. That pool was closed for 7 years. So a child at 7 would not have learned to swim. For 7 years, they would have gotten to be 14. And I don't mean to call out my husband, but he grew up in a place where he didn't learn how to swim. And as an adult, it's a life skill. You're always afraid of getting into a boat. And we have lost those years for those kids. And my opponent never did enough. Not enough to open it, not enough to put pressure on Mr. Astorino. And Mr. Astorino at the time was proposing a $25 million ice skating rink in his backyard, and my opponent wrote about it in his newsletter. So what happens to Sprain Ridge Pool matters to me. It matters because it's District 15, and District 15 needs a champion. It doesn't need somebody who's going about North 60, going about, let's talk about Playland. It is important, but you have to take care of your home district first, and that's my main complaint, and that's why I'm running.
Okay. Sorry. And forgive-
May I?
forgive me.
I
Yes,
know
you
the
may.
question was about
Yes, you may.
Playland, but sort of went into Sprain Ridge Pool. I have
That's
a long
exactly
history
why.
with Sprain Ridge Pool. I worked there for 6 years. I was a park attendant. I was a lifeguard. Sprain Ridge Pool is dear to my heart, and I advocated for it. But guess what? When the county executive violates basically what the majority of the board wanted, I mean, you can only enforce so much. There was A&C vote that it had to go through. Rob Astorino avoided it. To say I wasn't a champion, I criticized Rob
Thank
Astorino
you.
on this issue.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you want further on that? Or
I mean, the other thing I have to say is there was a photo op because I was running against my opponent, and they did a rushed job at Sprain Ridge Pool that cost the taxpayers millions of dollars. That pool was not ready to open, but they needed a photo op. And I blame him for that, and I blame him for not being an advocate and a loud advocate to open that pool for the children who live in this district.
Then I guess you're blaming all the other legislators as
Okay.
well.
All right. No, we'll stop there. We're going to stop there and go on to a completely different question where the question really is there, I mean, that one, there's definitely a role for the county. This, the question is there a role for the county, or what might the role be? National issue. Given the scourge of gun violence in our country and the passage of important new gun laws in New York State, like the red flag law, what do you see as the role of Westchester government in further promoting gun safety, gun reform in our county? You're first.
So I've proposed a red flag mandatory notification law. So when you are making your way through domestic violence case, if you feel that you are at risk or somebody in the home has guns that make you afraid, you're not notified now that there is a red flag law, that you can go back before the judge and ask those guns removed from the home. So I've proposed a mandatory notification law. If you're in domestic violence court, you're confused, you're upset, you don't actually have all of your ducks in a row, so to speak. And my opponent voted against the gun show ban, not only once, but twice. We do not need gun shows at the county center. It was decided, and he still voted against the ban, even though he knew that it was going to go through. And that's because he has a local NRA support organization support him. And how do I feel being the daughter of a World War II vet that there was a gun show with neo-Nazi paraphernalia next to the guns? I don't feel good. How does our Jewish community feel when there's a gun show at the county center and there's neo-Nazi material right next to it? They don't feel good. We need to make sure that our people in this Westchester County are as safe as they can be. And the Second Amendment is the Second Amendment. That's fine. You should be able to get a background check. But these gun shows do not need to be promoting hate. And my opponent is silent on hate. He doesn't talk about making things better. Thank you.
Okay.
It's hard not to get defensive when you hear somebody saying that I'm a proponent for hate. And I'm not out there. Bottom line is, I'm not a gun owner. I'm afraid of guns, to be honest with you. My father, who owned a gun, when he passed away, the gun could have reverted to me. I didn't want it. Neither did my brothers. But you know what? There is a Second Amendment. There's a constitutional right for people who are law-abiding citizens to have a gun. And I'm not going to violate our Constitution. I will do everything to protect our residents. I'll do anything to protect our country. However, there's no reason, obviously, for gun buttresses. There's no reason for machine guns. Those kind of days weren't considered when the gun legislation, when we were doing the Constitution. But to go and say that I was supportive of neo-Nazism, if I was supportive, that's stirring hate. That's not right. And I've never attacked you that way, Ruth. I don't think you should attack me. Bottom line is, we should do everything we can to protect our citizens. I'm very involved in the court. The red flag legislation is something that I support. If you know that your neighbor or somebody is having a mental problem and owns a gun, I want you. I think it's your duty to go and report that. For anybody to go and say that anybody, I don't care whether you're a proponent of guns or not, want to institute fear, that's not legislating, that's fear-mongering.
Okay. Try to. That's tough. It's tough. I'm asking you to hold it until the end.
Can I rebut?
And yes.
So another thing my opponent did was to say that when there was a white supremacist group on a local college campus recruiting a poster, it's called Identity Europa, he said, you can watch the video, he said, well, I think that might have been photoshopped. So, when we are presented with problems, my opponent is that voice of doubt. Well, maybe that really didn't happen. When we're not hearing from him things like, hate has no home here. He doesn't go to these, sorry.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm not going to even bother to respond to that.
All right. With apologies.
Except to say it's not true.
Okay. With apologies to those of you who wrote these questions, there's time for one more, and we're beginning with Mr. Burrows on this last question. Do you have any ideas about how we can increase protection in Westchester for victims of both labor and sex trafficking in our county?
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yes. Do you have any ideas about how we might increase protection for victims of both labor trafficking and sex trafficking in our county?
Well, I think any legislation that we can have, any laws that we have, should be enforced. I've been always very strong on any crime legislation, and some of the concerns that I have right now is that we are taking a different path and we're not protecting our citizens. I think one of the things that as county legislators' most important function is to provide for the safety of our residents. And I believe what is happening in the Democratic-controlled legislature right now is, whether it's with no bail reform, that they've been soft on crime legislation. Serious violent felons now are being allowed to get back on the streets. That shouldn't be allowed. Why should we allow that? We're giving more rights to our immigrants than we are to other groups. We're stripping judges of discretion. We're not allowing them to, in the past they were able to go and say, I'm going to give bail, I'm going to warrant bail or not. We're taking that away. The district attorneys in the 5 boroughs of New York, which are extremely liberal, were against and are against what is occurring right now on all levels of government in New York City and or Westchester County. I believe the lawmakers that are right now governing Westchester politics have been turning our courts into a revolving door of leniency. That's not right. I have, as an attorney, have always been strong on maintaining control and maintaining our public safety, and I'll continue to do that as a county legislator.
Thank you. Okay.
So my opponent did vote against the cash bail reforms, and I have to say, how could you? How could you continue this criminalization of poverty? You can't tell me if there's a problem and you can't make $500 bail, how is it that okay with my opponent that you spend 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks in jail? We don't need another Khalil Browd who spent 3 years at Rikers waiting for his trial to be concluded. He was never convicted of a crime. And he came out of that experience so traumatized that he took his own life. We need to have, the judge always has the discretion to say this person is too violent to go home, to go back to the community. But if it's a petty crime, again, I was the court clerk in the village of Bronxville. We had shoplifter, we had trespassing, and some of those people could not make the $500 bail. And that seems incredible, but they would then go to jail for 8 or 10 weeks at the taxpayer expense. These people were not dangerous. They just couldn't make the bail. So I would be supportive of that. And I do think that my opponent is telling you these old stories about soft on crime. We have to look forward. We have to think forward about what it is that keeps our community safe. It's community policing. It's after school programs for kids so that they're not actually joining into violent gangs. Things like a public
Thank
pool.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
If I can comment?
Yes.
Okay, there has been bail leniency in New York City. You might have heard stories that the Robert Kennedy Foundation has given money to allow people who couldn't afford bail to get out of jail. Some of those people have gotten jail, have committed murder, have committed other crimes. I don't believe at this point in time that we are going in the right direction, and I believe the philosophy of one party, being the Democratic Party, being soft on crime and saying all these altruistic sayings is in our best interest.
Can I say again? I just don't think it's true that because you don't have money for bail, you are
replying?
violent. Yeah, he said I can have another 30 seconds. It's not true that poor people should be locked up, and that's what the cash bail system was. As a judge, you still have the right to say this person needs to be kept in custody, and it is a scare tactic and it's a revenue tactic to say we need to keep everybody in jail all the time while they're waiting. It's not true, and they've done studies, and people have found.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Once again, when we get to the end of both closing statements, that's the time for an audience reaction. You've been very good. It's been tough, and this has been a tough. And please remember what I said at the beginning that no, yeah, well, it's too late. Come on. What's your favorite cheese? What? Come on.
Thank you.
Where are we anyway?
Cheese.
Okay, you got to
Cheese-
laugh.
I have to tell-
No,
can I have my joke?
I'm not posing that question. It's after 9 o'clock.
Okay.
No, the serious thing I said was at the start was that I reserve the right to award rebuttal at the end of a closing statement if warranted, and that would be if something is brought up in the closing statement that we haven't talked about, that hasn't been aired, and there's a lot that's been aired. So it's a minute each, and we begin with Mr. Burrows.
Well, this is closing, you said, right?
Closing, 1 minute.
It's been my honor to serve as your legislator over the last 15 years. It's been my honor to serve this community of which I've been a resident all my life. I've coached my 5 kids in the Hillcrest Boys and Girls Club. I've served as a public member on the Emergency Financial Control Board when Yonkers was in fiscal distress. I've served 10 years on the Yonkers City Council, 7 of those years as majority leader, And I don't think it's coincidence that we saw the development of the waterfront, Stu Leonard's, Costco, Home Depot. I've served 15 years on the county board, and I've been referred to as a fiscal hawk. I take that as an honor and prestige. When the Parkview Apartments went on fire, I was there the next day at Roosevelt talking with our community services for the county, and I was there with Red Cross. When Con Edison went out and we had the storm and we didn't have electricity, I got national attention on channels on all the major stations because of the heat that I put on Con Edison. I've been there, I have the experience, I have the leadership and the desire to continue to work as your county legislator, and I'd ask you to please consider
you very
voting for
much.
me on November 5th.
Okay. A minute and 10, you got it.
So just to give you a little bit of my background, I am the youngest of 8 children. I know how to advocate for myself, and I know how to advocate, as you would guess, for the district where I live. I love living in this district. I've raised my children here. We have a business. I'm the president of the local library, and I'm the former court clerk. I have also, in the last 2 years since I ran before, I got 46% of the vote, and I have gotten into even more organizations that are community builders. And what we want in our legislators is we want connection. We want somebody who comes to our meetings, who talks to us, who gives us ideas, and who receives our ideas. And my opponent is not visible in the community. One of my hashtags is Ruth shows up. And I will show up, and I will have a busy office with lots of people coming in, telling me about the problems in their district, and I will be the constituent services person who's giving them the information on where to find their help. Please vote for me on November 5th. I will work for you. Thank
The
you.
applause for both candidates. Both candidates.
Thank you, Gordon.
Okay. Hold on before you all run away. If you, they're not going to listen to anything. They're not going to listen to anything. Okay. Now, they're going to listen to you.
Thank you all for coming out. Thanks Sarah Lawrence College for making this wonderful facility available. Thank you to all the sponsoring organizations.
And of course, don't forget to vote.